Welcome to Money Talks with Lynn Kitchen. I am so excited because money makes the world go round. And this opportunity to listen to an expert in revenue generation, sales strategies, Doug C. Brown is with us today. I'm so excited. Hi, Doug.
Hi, Lynn. Thanks so much for having me here today. Appreciate it.
Well, there is no accident because when any investor really wants to be able to grow their company and have a larger price valuation on their company, the number one thing that they look to is growth. And there's
Yes.
the number one growth strategy is revenue, top line revenue is everything. And that is what, let me just tell everybody about what you have accomplished in your life, Doug. Doug C. Brown is the CEO of Sales Strategies. He's a renowned expert in sales revenues and profit growth. Now, listen to these statistics, please. Over his career, Doug has founded or built more than 35 companies of his own businesses who have collectively generated 960 million in sales for himself and his clients. Now, that's only 40 million less than 1 billion. Now, we often talk about how to generate a billion, not just a million, not just seven, eight, nine. This is $1 billion revenue generating expert in front of you. I am so excited. He's also a creator of a software program for sales that I'm going to ask him to talk about because it is a predictable, reliable, measurable, math based opportunity to help businesses to absolutely grow and knock out better, bigger growth rates, numbers, and be able to have a better life. So that's what we're all about here on Money Talks, and I'm so delighted to have you as my guest here, Doug. Why?
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for having me. It's interesting when I hear those numbers, I'm like, oh yeah, we did do that, right? It's kind of like, but
It's
I don't know.
impressive.
I'm older now, so maybe that's part of the reason, right? I've had longevity in this process, so
Well, that is interesting point because how many experts are long, have a longevity. Um,
it's true.
we oftentimes hear of companies that grow and then, they blow up over time because that kind of longevity is very, very difficult to have growing revenue, growing earnings, growing profit margins for decades upon decades upon decades. And it's no wonder that you have certainly must have come up with something that works, which is what I'm wanting to kind of drill down to
Okay.
today. You mentioned that you've helped people raise their closing rates in their sale over 140%. Boosting sales is not easy, but when you can have a closing rate over 100%, then you're talking about being able to double, triple sales over time and have that longevity factor.
Yes.
What's your secret?
I don't know if it's a secret or it's just logic, right? So here's what I generally notice with most companies and people who are selling. They're selling, they're making money, but they've not optimized that process. And so really what I do is I optimize the process for them.
Hmm.
In the first place we start is what is our truthful goal? Because I cannot tell you the exact percentage because I never measured it, but it's super high. I can tell you that many companies they really don't know what their truthful goal is. They project, hey, let's do this year, and it's not really rooted in any like why are we doing this year, right? Um, so we start there. Once we understand that, we start to figure out the math behind it. What do we need to go from here to here? Here's the biggest place that most companies fall down. And I've seen this happen between my own businesses, startup process, and seriously, multi-billion dollar companies. They make the same mistake. In part or in full, they really don't know their ideal right fit buyers. And I thought it was like crazy because I mean, I've run into companies like Intuit who didn't understand who their ideal right fit buyer was in a certain division. And I was like, this is Intuit. I mean, it's a huge company. Like,
Yes.
And so everybody makes this mistake. And I thought it was very prevalent. So I started doing some data research and I found that Harvard's done a study on this. Wharton Business School has done a study on this. Marketo, HubSpot, bunch of companies. And they all conclude the same thing, that 97% of companies, anyone selling, solo or companies, in part or in full, do not know their ideal right fit buyer profile.
They're
And
right when you say, let's just get that really clear, right fit
yes,
buyer,
yes,
fit buyer
yes,
profile.
yes.
Hmm.
So
I
what
don't
that
think I've ever
means,
heard, you know what, I've been in the business a long time and I have not heard that terminology before. Right
yeah,
fit buyer profile.
yeah.
Could we just talk about that? What is that for a minute?
So who is that ideal target that we should be prospecting and marketing to? And who's got the highest probability of buying from us?
Ah,
And what
not
do they
necessarily what they call avatar. It's different. This is sounds different to me.
so avatar gets us in the market, right? So let's take any industry. I don't know, the auto industry.
Correct.
We're selling cars. We can
Mhm.
say, look, human beings who make over X dollars can afford a car. That could be kind of our avatar. Then we kind of break it down a little more than that, and we can get a little more, finite, and we can say, um, you know, people between 30 and 60 who are making this kind of income are usually our best buyers, so to speak, right?
Yes.
But when we look at if we look at the Pareto principle of the 80-20 that people always talk about,
Right.
there's always a 80-20 within the 20%.
Right. Sweet spot.
So what's that 4%? Those are your ideal right fit buyers. And so if we understand that, okay, within 30 to 60, actually it is a female who's working within a certain demographic who is making this kind of money between X and X, traditionally has two children and all. Now that's good. We narrowed it down even more into the niche. But now here's the real questions. What does she want? What does she need? What does she fear? What does she desire? What are all the attributes that surround her? Once we understand that, now we can dial in our marketing, our prospecting, our messaging, and all of that. So people are like, well, that's for cars. What about corporations? The CEO of a company, if that's what we're going after, what are all those attributes of the CEO, the perfect CEO? Now, here's the fun part. When we market to that particular profile, we pick up the periphery as well. But when we're marketing just to the periphery, we don't pick up that target profile very often.
That makes sense.
That's the difference between an avatar and a right fit buyer. We have to know the business return on investment and the personal return on investment that ideal right fit buyer wants. That is the messaging that we create. I'll use Intuit, for example. So I brought up Intuit earlier.
Sure.
Intuit had a $100 million division losing $10 million a year.
Oops.
And yeah, well, they could sustain it. They were into it. Right? So, but no one wants to do that.
No, and it takes a huge turnaround to be able to either make that up or go in the different direction.
Right. So their challenge was, and by the way, we got them from $10 million loss to $7 million gain in 1 year.
Oh my gosh.
And here's how we did it. Their messaging was off. They had the right fit buyer, but their messaging was off because they didn't know what their buyer truly wanted, what their buyer truly feared, what their, all of the things that I was just saying. So here's what was happening. Intuit was selling checks, written checks at the time, paper checks. And the paper checks They were trying to sell at a premium price, but they were paper checks, and companies like Vistaprint and other companies who could print those same checks for way less costs to the
Yes.
end consumer. So they were losing their buyers on that division going to competitors. And so we said, well, what do they need? What do they fear? What do they want? They said, well, we're really not sure. And we said, let's do some research. And here's what we came up with. We found out that the average small business and even major corporations are subjected on a very high percentage rate to check fraud.
Yes.
And the average check fraud costs between roughly $50,000 and $75,000 at that time to the company. So
Right.
what we did is we adjusted the conversation versus them saying, "Hey, we're into it. Hey, we have our checks. What do you want? Well, how much are they? How many checks do you want? Well, this is your price." Ow, that's really high, right? That's kind of the conversation. And the sales team was frustrated because they couldn't really sell it like they used to. Um, we adjusted the conversation to go, "Hi, Lynn. Very nice to meet you. Um, you're looking for checks. That's what I understand. Is that correct?" You would say yes. And then the next question out of their mouth would be, "Well, Lynn, are you aware that on average that almost 70% of companies out there are experiencing check fraud and they're losing about $65,000 a year?"
Yikes. A real fear that either was on top of their mind or maybe even not even recognized. And that is brilliant because it brings up the point that many companies are now finding themselves in the same situation of this commoditization.
Yes.
And we're all much of what we are selling now has become commoditized in many ways. Even all information, right?
Yes.
All kinds of information now has become commoditized. So what I hear you saying is that you're an expert in really going underneath to find the fear points that people really are, you know, interested in, and as it turns out, checks, which is pieces of paper, really.
Right. Right.
And but there is a certain element to those papers done correctly that would help to eliminate a certain problem or a fear point, which being ripped off, as you mentioned, by means of check fraud was
Yes.
huge.
Yes.
So you really differentiated them by finding a special antidote to a fear point. Is that it?
Yeah, because all people buy for three. They want something, and that
Mhm.
comes down to three things that I know of, anyways. They have a problem,
Right.
they have a goal, or they just found an opportunity they want to capitalize on. So, you know, let's say a gym. I have a problem. I'm too heavy. I don't feel well. I'm out on the dating circuit. I want to, that's my problem. Or it could be an opportunity, a goal. Hey, I have a goal to lose 30 pounds in 6 months. Now they could be tied because I have the problem of being overweight. Um, and it could be like, hey, I have somebody who's interested in me. I want to look better.
Yeah.
So there's my opportunity, right? So it doesn't matter if it's personal purchase or business purchase, it's all the same. And so we must look at that with our ideal right fit buyer and say, what are those things that they want and what category does it fit into? Now, what's the language they want to hear where they perceive value, not our own language where we think they perceive value? That's one of the big mistakes that companies always make when they're pitching something. But what do they want? How do they say that language? We need to emulate that language. And
So
if we
when
don't,
you
then we miss the mark.
when you're working with your clients, Doug, I mean, I'm sure you have worked with lots of different industries. Could you just let my audience know what are some of the different industry groups in this whole spectrum of
Yeah.
business out here?
Yeah. Well, it's a great question because some people are thinking, well, it just doesn't work in my industry. It might work for
Exactly.
Intuit, right?
Yeah.
So we've done this in over 350 industries. So
350 industries.
yes,
The chances are, whoever's watching today, this might help you. Listen
likely.
up. Okay, go
Like,
ahead.
well, I mean, business is two things. One, money in, money out equals something, right? So it's either, loss, break even, or profit. That's kind of the formula. And the second thing is business is super simple until we add people to the mix, and then
Yep.
it gets much more involved. So it does work across the board because it's really math. When it comes down to it, it's just math that's applied in a formulaic process. And even the people say, well, what do you mean the conversation's not math? It really is when you break it down to how many outreaches are we making per day?
Yeah.
What is our connection rate with that outreach? What is the response rate that we're getting? Now, is it negative, neutral, or positive? That will tell us something if our messaging is resonating, or whether we're talking to the right people. If we just start measuring these metrics, and that's what we do, how many of these positive or negative or neutral go to a first appointment? How many first appointments are kept, right? Those type of metrics. How many of these appointments close? We start measuring all of this across the whole customer life cycle, from marketing to customer service and everything in between. It really starts revealing a lot of things, Lynn, that people are like, wow, okay, there's a story here. Then we dig in, figure out what the story is, and how do we resolve that story.
And each one of those journeys between along the path of that, there's a message going on here. That's what I hear you say. There's a
Yes,
message, and for every one of those sales conversations that's not working, there's a tweak or potentially a
correct.
message tweak that could change that or shift that, if you could measure that. And I think that's what I'm hearing you say, that there's real knowledge in being able to follow that methodology. And most of the people that I have come across who are entrepreneurs have a hard time with this. Measuring anything that's measurable, they shy away from. They really don't want
Yes.
to see the reality. They just kind of want to continue to talk, or to talk and think that they have the right messaging, and then get discouraged pretty quickly. What do you say to people who are shy of the actual measuring stick? That the measuring is actually our friend. It should be, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's a little in their face, but enjoy mediocrity. I like,
That's a good point. Good
right?
point.
So, look, here's the thing. If you want to stop, let's say you're smoking, I don't know, 2 cigarettes a day, and your doctor says to you, look, your lung capacity is not as good as it's supposed to be. You're still breathing. You're fine. You can walk upstairs, but long term, this is going to bite you. You may end up with emphysema or whatever, right? The doctor says that. Well, okay, so we can just keep smoking. We can add more cigarettes, or we can cut back to 1 cigarette a day, or we can cut it out, right? And then our lungs hopefully repair themselves and get better. In business, it's very similar. We can keep doing the behavior that's got us stuck, or we could do something different. And I will tell everyone on this line, from my perspective, measuring these things will give you a healthier company. And it will also bring new opportunity. And we're right now, I have some partners. We're actually raising up a insurance company.
Hmm.
And I've been looking at the numbers, and I'm like, when you bring insurance agents on, average is 1 in 5 sticks. So 4 out of 5 leave. And out of that 20% that sticks, a lot of these big brokerages are reporting only 5 to 13% of their people work. And I'm like, that's crazy. Why? Like, that's a measurement, right?
Yes,
We
yes,
all
it
can
is.
agree with that. So as I dig and dig and dig, I'm like, what's the story here? You got, like, be an investigative journalist, ask the questions, right?
Yes.
And so what I've come to the conclusion, and other people now that I've talked with have come to the conclusion that there's a lack of um, retention due to two factors. One, training is low, and accountability and bonding is low. So if I talk to the agents, that's what they'll say. They're like, well, you know, I left this company to go to this company because this company would pay me more because I wasn't getting what I wanted here. And so we fixed those two issues. You train them every day, you love them up, you help them be accountable, and you help them grow. That's what the business is. So we'll see how we fare in that. But that's the story. This is what I'm trying to tell people. If they step back and they just start measuring what people would call KPIs, key point indicators. For me, it's what are all the metrics within the journey? And then we look at they'll tell you an amazing story. And then you got to find out what the cause of the story is, remove the cause, and you no longer have the problem.
Now, let's get to the big, impressive number that I put out there as it relates to what you've been able to accomplish, Doug, over your career. I mean, raising $960 million worth of revenue for yourself and your clients
Yeah.
is a tremendous accomplishment. And I just want to say, first of all, that blows me away. And secondly, I have no understanding of how great you must be in training. There must be something that you have that you can impart to the entrepreneur or to the corporation or to the salespeople that makes this sing, that makes it work, that makes it convert, that makes the actual sales increase, so that you can that you can do that. Now, is this accomplishment something that you've been able to replicate over and
Yeah.
over?
Oh, yeah.
There must be
Yeah.
something here.
Yeah. 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 So it's fun. We're talking about 960 million. It's actually grown now. We're getting closer to that billion mark.
Are
So
you really?
yeah. Yeah.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
I have to have you back when you hit that billion.
Okay. Well, it may not be more than a year at this point that we're getting there. So,
Okay.
so I the here's the thing. I had to figure out this um, because people were asking me to help them.
Yeah.
And so I was in doing it for myself and other companies and some very well known companies. And even like in the training industry, I did this for like Chet Holmes, the late Chet Holmes, who wrote a book called The Ultimate Sales Machine, Tony Robbins, the gentleman who owned Rich Dad, Poor Dad, a
Yeah.
bunch of big
Kawasaki.
brands, right?
Right.
And and I was getting the same results in their businesses, but I had a methodology, but I wasn't really sure what it was, if that makes sense. Like I was just kind of on autopilot. So I stepped back and I said, all right, I started breaking it down into steps and stages. So I'm going to answer your question first.
Okay.
If we have like a sales team or we have people selling or we're selling, what is the magic sauce in this whole process? So it is the methodology, but we also have to train on a few things. One, we have to have an accountability system in the process. And most companies, frankly, train and they go, hey, we just did our 30-minute training or 45-minute training. See you next week. And that's the end of it, right? That's the deal. That is the wrong way to be doing training.
Hmm.
Now, imagine if we did a little slightly much different, I should say. Hey, this is the subject matter. This is what we expect you to learn out of the subject matter. We now have homework for you, and you need to turn your homework in within 2 days. And next week's training is going to be a continuation of this point. So make sure the homework's done here because you will be lost when you come back to the training. And if you're lost when you come back to the training, we're going to kick you out publicly out of the training. Something like that, right?
Aha. Interesting. So that makes them want to get better and prove themselves each time, every step along the way.
Exactly. And we're now, if we have employees, we can do that. We can control that. If we have independent contractors, we can still control it and just say, look, this is the homework in order to continue. If you don't do the homework, it's up to you, but we are not going to let you back in the training. Right. So we're not controlling them at that point. We're just controlling what we want as an outcome. That's the difference. And so, because I know some people go, well, I got an independent sales team. How the heck do I do that? I've done it a lot with independent sales teams. So so we've got to, the other thing too is we've got to provide really good quality training. And
Yes.
and a lot of people don't even understand what their people need for training. And so they hire a trainer, they bring them in, they throw it at the wall, and right. So again, what are we
Well, it
measuring?
comes down to, I mean, so much is in helping people know what to say. This messaging, this idea of messaging and
Right,
getting the right fit and the right uh, thing that will excite the customer and actually convert the customer. So that training has to have the right messaging to train somebody to speak in that way.
right,
But I think what I'm hearing you say too is this accountability idea is a way that we want to be able to help productivity, that idea of getting better at something,
right.
right?
And we all need that. That's why if we have a personal trainer, we will get better results with a personal trainer that we will not. If we have an
Mm,
accountability buddy in anything that we're doing, we will do better. And the reason behind that is it's just compounding interest. It goes back to math again. I'm sorry, math, blah, I get it. But it really goes back to math. If you take 1% a day and compound it, in 70 days, we're at 2x statistically. So let's say that we got 1% better a day at something, and we did it every day and we got 1% better. In 70 days, we're twice as good as where we were when we started. If we go out a year, we're almost 37 times better because of that compounding each and every day. It's like taking a penny, putting it in the bank, and then doubling it every single day, right?
I'm all
That
for that.
Yeah, most of us have heard that, you'll have like almost $5.4 million coming in on day
Exactly.
30. So it's very similar, but here's what happens. People don't grow at 1% a day usually for a whole year period of time. But let's say it was going to be 37 times better at the end of the year at 1%, but we're off by 90%. It only comes up to 1/10 of a day, 1/10 of a percent per day. That individual is still 3.5 times better than they were.
It's fascinating. So your philosophy is truly about being able to help people grow, personal growth, professional growth over
Yeah,
time, and always getting better, rather than thinking that, oh, I'm a great salesperson. I don't need any help. I'm so good.
yeah,
There's always that improvement. And as we are moving into AI and moving into these places in which corporations are, we're getting some real change out here. Everything is changing.
yes,
All of our assumptions, even the messaging, I'm sure you're finding, has to be fine tuned in order to make this a brand new leaps and bounds forward. And I'm really curious about, as you have become such an expert, Doug, in your field in helping entrepreneurs, corporations to grow and truly create explosive growth in their top line revenue. How have you now been able to bring an automation factor?
yeah,
I think that you had mentioned, or I know something about you, that you have invented a revolutionary sales automation software.
yes.
Um, and so this also is we're moving into territory now where we need all the tools we can get. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So, firstly, mentioning AI is here. People, you got to embrace it, folks.
Yeah,
That is the way it's going to be. Um, can I endorse somebody on
of
this? Like,
course. Do
okay,
whatever you want.
okay. So people like you asked the question. Top producers. Um, some of them think they shouldn't. They don't need to get better, et cetera, et cetera. Right? Everyone who's in business or selling, not to quote Tony Robbins, but you're either growing or you're, well, so I'm quoting Tony Robbins, either growing or you're sliding, right?
Yeah,
That's just the way it is. With AI, it's coming fast and it's nothing to be feared. But I'll use myself as an example. I joined this AI foundations group, right? It's not a lot of money. It's like $500 a year. The training is amazing. The accountability is amazing. They meet 3 days a week. And so for $500 a year. And I've learned a lot about AI.
yeah.
And I'm going to continue to learn more about AI. I've joined groups who have AI foundations, not just that group, to learn more about AI. And if you're an owner of a company or a solo person who owns their own business, you're an independent sales professional, you own your own company. You must keep growing, because if we don't keep growing, competition is going to come in. And let me give you an example of this. I have uh, wasn't a competitor, but we're deciding to enter into this market. And he has a software, and it took him about 2 years to perfect the software. We re engineered that with AI, myself and one other person, in 3 days.
My gosh.
And so, is it 100% of what he's got? No, but it's 80%. And so, with a couple more tweaks, we'll get there to 95, 100%. And the cost structure of what we did it for compared to what he did it for is not even comparable. I mean, it's just crazy. It cost us little to nothing, and it cost him almost, probably $1 million to build what he built. So the reasoning I'm saying that, because we are also in the technology business, is going to start driving more and more sales workflow, sales accountability, sales automation in a way that people hadn't experienced before. So what that means is it's going to take the routine stuff out of the day, and it's going to automate it with AI agentic agents. That's kind of what they're called,
Yes.
and workflows. And so we've got to be able to embrace this in the growth of the business. And this is no different than when the internet came in. Right? People, like, I remember talking to people when DSL came in, digital subscriber lines, high speed access. And I was like, this is going to change sales forever. And they're like, you're crazy, Doug. I'm like, no, think about it. With a
Yes.
click of a button, they can learn more about us than we can learn about them. Right? And so,
Absolutely.
right. So and now it's like marketing has now become more infused in the sales process than ever. They're now uniting finally, thank goodness. Um, and people now are doing all this research ahead of time for major purchases, especially, and they're inviting sales channels in, not to be the expert anymore, but to determine whether or not they have the ability to actually deliver on what they're looking for, and they already know what it is. And then, we still want to be the experts, but before, years ago, when I started selling, you invited IBM in because they gave you the solution. You invited in McKinsey because they gave you the solution. You went to, like an attorney because they had the solution.
Yes.
But now if you want to do a will, click a button, go up online and pay your $39, whatever it is, and you're done, right? So
Exactly.
that's what's happening, and that's what AI is going to do, especially to sales positions or other positions that are just workflow related. They're going to automate all this stuff. And why wouldn't they? Why pay a $60,000 base salary when you can get an agent to do this for $100 a month? It just
So
cost profitability, really, when it
so
comes down to it.
are you offering that sales automation software? Uh,
Believe it or not, we've been only making it available to clientele or select people, but we are actively, I'm looking at a board over here, we're actively thinking about now opening this up to the public.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
yeah, and so what it will do, we started this process all in automated, proactive, and meaningful follow up because companies drop the ball big time. Sellers drop the ball big time in doing that, Lynn. And we started measuring it. It's easy to get a 5 to 15% bump in revenue if you just follow up.
Wow. Easy to get 5 to 15% jump in revenue
Yeah.
just by following
Yeah.
the a few changes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's not.
Imagine if you would put that together with your training and the messaging.
Yeah, and that's what we're considering doing, right? So we named this thing because we didn't have a name, and we're just like, we need a name. So it's like, let's just call it the 2X method, right? The double your sales type process. And we're like, people don't want to double their sales. We know that.
Yeah,
They like the idea of it, but what they want is predictable growth. So we just picked the name of 2X because it's sounding like, I don't like the concept of 10X. People talk about 10X growth. And
right.
I'm like, well, if you can bench press 100 pounds, I don't think we're going to throw 1,000 pounds on the bar and you're going to push it up. Maybe you could, Lynn, but I couldn't for sure. Right. Um, and so I'm like, but we could grow enough to get to 200 pounds. Getting to 1,000 pounds is a lot. So that's what. So it's a going back to your original question. It's the methodology that I've used all throughout the years to actually create predictable revenue growth. And then we're thinking of marrying that with the actual technology and the software, and offering that out as a public offering.
As a public offering. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You mean IPO?
Well, we're looking at that very seriously. So what we're first we got to step back a little in the process. Right, the software is done. So that part, we've already paid for that. But we're also looking at what do we want to do for enhancements on that, and how big can we get this, and how big do we want to get this really? So
Right.
it goes back to the same question that you asked me. What's the truthful goal in this process? And until we figure that out, we're not going to do because there's no sense in grabbing investors' money if we're not certain about exactly what the goal we want to do, right? And and so yeah, we've been talking about a public offering, um, about bringing the IPO into that. But again, we've got
Well,
to get
that,
it to that point before we
of
we
course.
we
Well,
do
that is,
the IPO.
that's a milestone of success that I certainly, and everyone listening, we cheer you on and hope that that is something that you can experience and want to. But in the meantime, as a private company that is truly on the cusp of being successful enough to become a public company, which is no small achievement in itself,
Yeah.
um, here is where I'm excited for you to tell everyone your overall viewpoint of what you're seeing in the marketplace, and how, first of all, before we go any further, how can people get in touch with you? Because if
Um,
someone's listening and wants to grow their business, they have to start with the top line. They have to start with sales. They have to start with revenue to grow everything. All kinds of mistakes can be taken care of by means of increasing your top line revenue.
yeah.
It takes care of lots of former mistakes, your debt loads, and all kinds of things to write your balance sheets again. You
Yeah.
have to have some help on the top line growth. And Doug
So
C.
so
Brown is an expert.
well, thank you. And if they want to reach out to me at Doug at ceosalesstrategies.com, that's my email address. They can
Okay.
hit me up on LinkedIn at Doug Brown 123.
Okay.
And the first step that we would do is we do it's like an audit, but it's an assessment. It's a sales optimization assessment, and we can quickly figure out where their business could grow. That
Excellent.
give me an hour of your time in that regard, and we can figure that out. That would be the best place to start.
Exciting. All right. Well, we'll put those links in the show notes,
Yeah.
um, for everyone. And so, in just the time that we have left, Doug, let's go to the top view, looking down the growth of sales, AI impacting the future of our ability and our decision making as CEOs of our enterprises. Isn't it true now more than ever with the commoditization, as you're talking about? You have to really get good at automation, but you also have to get even better at being that expert in delivering the messaging. And because communication isn't that going to be probably paramount now more than ever, relationship building, communication,
Yeah.
and that center stream or sweet spot, as you had mentioned at the beginning of our time together.
Yeah.
Could you just
Studies.
give me your overall view of where we're going?
Yeah, and I think you did an outstanding job of doing that. Studies clearly show that, the more automation and AI that's brought into it, the less human EQ, IQ, like the communication between human beings, at least for the short run, won't be replaced by AI,
Yeah.
right? But and I don't personally think it'll ever be, because human beings like to bond with human beings, a human need, right? I mean, you get little kids together, they start playing together. That's just their nature, right? So I don't think that we don't take the kid out of the adult. I mean, we're just big kids in bigger bodies, right? So I don't think that'll ever go away, and especially for more complex decisions. So if nothing else, if people don't take anything out of this other than this message, start measuring your metrics and your ratios in your business, and then ask yourself, what business are you really in? Because you're not in plumbing, you're not in air conditioning, you're not in selling piano, you're not in pianos or music or whatever. You're in the client acquisition business first. And if you're not, that's part of the reason your revenue's not growing.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you with us today, Doug, and I couldn't be more happy. Everyone, please run, don't walk, and contact Doug C. Brown quickly so that you can continue to grow your businesses with intelligence. So, thank you so much, Doug. I appreciate you. And so, thanks, everybody. Hope to see you next time on Money Talks with Lynn Kitchen. Have a great week. See you next time.